shall we begin? This is a panel comparing the frameworks, most of which you have come to know and love by coming to this conference. You probably already knew them and loved them. Plone, Guillotina, Pyramid, and Django. The one, Django, you might not have come to know and love from the conference, but I bet you know it well enough. Whoops, what happened to the... Oh, I went to sleep. I'll have to do something about that. So, the plan for this session is that we'll have a very, very, very brief introduction from each of the frameworks, just a little bit about what use cases they're particularly well suited for and poorly suited for. And they'll introduce themselves as they go along. And then we're going to have a discussion focused on use cases again. And I have some questions that I can pose, and hopefully you guys will get into the into the groove of the kind of questions we want to ask these guys, and then we can take questions from the audience. Yeah. And our wonderful community live blogger Moritz is going to live blog the whole thing into... Yes. So he's going to be writing, this is just a Google Doc that's going to be accessible to everybody, so he's going to be taking notes right in this doc, so it might change in front of your eyes. But happily he's on a different computer, so he won't be running around with it. And then I just wanted to say that, you know, framework, product, we've had this discussion so many times, and, you know, the different systems are rather different in that regard, but let's not worry about that. Let's just, you know, framework comparison. So, with that, let's start from this end. So, please introduce yourself and give us a couple points about Plone.
Okay, my name is Jens. You may know me. I'm in Plone since version 1, and yeah, try to answer the questions, but we decided that Paul starts with a list.
Yeah, my name is Paul. I've been using Plone. I specifically look at the user perspective, and I'll start with some of the questions about authorization and authentication. I've worked for a lot of nonprofits, and Plone is really good when you have different use groups. I've never encountered a situation where I couldn't map the requirements that we had, and they can be quite complex in terms of who gets to see what, who is allowed to do what. Even as a nonprofit, we have pretty high security requirements, and I've never ever met a situation where I couldn't map that onto Plone's tools. The editing interface, it's doable. To be fairly honest, I've seen better, especially it doesn't work well on mobiles, which is increasingly a problem as we have a very international audience, but on a desktop it works pretty fine. Import-export is a bit too complicated for my tastes, but it's quite doable for if you hire a technical person such as Jens.
Yeah, there we come to the question, how difficult it is to find developers and maintainers. I think that's a problem in most of the Python projects, but with Plone it's kind of difficult to find skilled people. And this is in fact a problem at some point. There's also the next question is about the design decisions and implications, opinions about Plone. So it's difficult to answer, but the design decision, we have a pluggable system, which is very good. I think that's what the answer here is. And it makes the development more difficult, but on the other hand, you are very flexible. Questions about async IO support, you know. And also microservices.
Okay, we should interrupt here. So, you didn't get the memo that we were just going to talk about use cases for this part. And sort of make sure.
Sorry, I have no idea why I had this. I was a bit confused about this paper.
That's just to remind you. So
okay.
The thing on your
chairs. So thank you very much. I give my
to remind you to cover those points through the hour that we have.
Sorry.
Moving on.
Okay. Show you want to be.
I'm fine. You can repeat again.
Okay, I'm Ramon Navarro, co-author of Guillotina, and Guillotina is a small framework to build applications that can be real-time, scale from small to big, and doesn't provide the UI. but it's a nice API that is nearly compatible with Plone.
I'm Nathan Van Giem, and I'm the co-author of Guillotina. I don't have anything else to add on it. I guess we'll start with from there.
I'm Matthew. I've been involved in the Plone community since 2004, and I've been doing Django stuff for probably about 5 years now. And I am the one who has been delegated to describe what Django is good at. Django is aimed at the 80% of use cases that most people have, not the 20% of complex authorization systems. Most companies, they have people who edit the website and people who don't. Django is perfect for that with a flat authentication system. It gives you a lot of freedom on the front end to design things exactly as you want because it doesn't provide anything for you. And it works really well when you're aiming for these create, update, delete kind of apps. Once you try to go past what Django is intending for you to do, you end up fighting the framework more than you do on the others, but your initial experience is often a lot smoother.
So, hi, my name is Roel. I've been doing Django for about 2 years now full-time and off and on since about 2008. So basically as long as I've been doing Plone. And what Matt said was absolutely correct.
Hi, my name is Steve Piercy. I've been involved with the Pylons project community since about 2011. I focus mostly on docs, and I'd say that what Pyramid is best suited for is APIs. It doesn't provide a content management interface, or it's not really a content management system, but if you wanted to start a small project, let your project grow with you, and then keep it operational for a long period of time, it's a good fit for what you want to do.
Hi, I'm Nate. I've been working with Plone from 2006 to 2012, at which point I switched to Pyramid, which I've been using exclusively since. Yeah, where Pyramid shines is not websites, but applications. So especially companies such as startups or companies building products, I think for those kind of use cases, Pyramid's really good. And yeah, basically provides a backend API.
Awesome. All right, we've had our brief intros and some not quite so brief, but we're going to move on to compare and contrast what systems might be best for certain kinds of use cases. And I have several use cases that we came up with that we thought would be good ones to think about, and we can open this up to the audience, but I'll start off. So a nonprofit which has no technical users wants a form to help with grant applications. Users sign up, fill in a complex form across multiple pages. Forms are usually submitted by teams of people who all need to edit different parts of the application. There are employees at the nonprofit who have individual review responsibilities for each application. They need to import past grant applications and have the ability to export in the future, as the data is critical to the business's continuity. So what frameworks would be a good fit? What frameworks would be a bad fit for that use case?
I'll start here since I have the mic and go the other way. Pyramid out of the box would not be a good fit. You'd have to write everything. You would have to write your own workflows. You could use any form library you like. But it's really not designed for the end user who would be designing the form or specifying what the workflow is and how data would move from one point to another. You'd really need to have a developer do that for you.
You have anything to say?
So it's kind of a mixed bag for Django. There are some things that are a really good fit and some things that aren't. Django has got a lot of helpers for building complex forms with multiple pages and validation and things. It has a very good import-export story. It uses its own format, but it's very readable. It's just JSON, CSV, that kind of thing. I forget exactly which. It could be both, or neither. but it's something, and it's fine. It's not pickles, basically. Code of conduct. Where this wouldn't be a very good fit for Django is the fact that you have to share access between different groups of people at different times. You could build it, but you would be fighting against the authentication framework in a few places. So if some of the requirements were flexible, then maybe, but as it is, you would probably get about 50% of the way there and then get stuck.
I think this first use case was cherry-picked for Plone, but anyways. Yeah, so Guillotina has the same sort of authorization type framework as Plone, so in that respect, it is a decent fit. But yeah, you'd have to be doing a lot of the logic and building the form library stuff within probably with a front end. You could define it all with JSON schema. But I guess other than that, it's not necessarily a really great fit. You got something?
It's important to know which budget do you have. If you have a lot to hire front-end developers, then Guillotine is a perfect fit.
Well, it did say nonprofit, so assume no.
Yeah, well, then if you need, you can build your front-end from scratch or use some kind of other library, then it's not a fit.
Yeah, I indeed also also think this was maybe cherry-picked, but Plone would be a very good fit, mainly because the people working at the non-profit could actually make and change their own forms, because they are the people who know what they have to fill in. They won't even need a consultant for that. They would probably need some extra work for the import-export to make that work nicely, but it divides sort of the knowledge and the tweakability would be on the people actually working there who know what they are doing in their daily lives. And then it would need some extra support from a provider to do the import-export right. But they could change the form over the lifetime, because often you need new forms, because new taxes come in or whatever. And that could be done by the people that actually use it. So that's a good fit. And also the separation of privileges, that works more or less out of the box.
No, I don't think I have to add anything.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna do another one or two of our sort of canned ones, and you guys can be thinking of your own. And I'd also just like to say, if you have a burning question, we'll take questions too. But I'll pause for that maybe after one or two more of these use cases. So the next use case. A small concert venue needs an event listing. There's a well-known schema for event pages, and the owner of the venue is the kind of person who always explores the advanced settings page on every system that they use. They have a small budget. Their priority is a fast, beautiful listing. They're willing to compromise on the usability of the authoring interface.
I wouldn't bother with Plone. No.
Enough said.
Because you would have to maintain it. I mean, I would honestly, they don't even need a framework. They could probably get away with using Gatsby with plain Markdown. But if you want to keep the archive, this screams more relational, and it's overkill. Sometimes of course you can. I would, because I know how to install it, but no, just don't.
I think it's kind of getting into it. So, and if you want to do it with Plone and want to customize all the stuff and so on, then it gets difficult to get things right. If it's really a person tinkering with stuff and even doing, I know from Boston Conference there was a talk, what's possible through the web. That was great. It opened even my eyes. But it's a different approach, right? And you can do an event listing with a stock Plone. Sure, we have it already in there. And then do some CSS on it and make it beautiful. If that is all that is needed here, then yes, you can do it with Plone. But usually, as far as I understand the use case, it's a kind of bit more.
Right, and they do have a custom schema that it sounds like they want. So, yeah.
I don't know what you, but like, hey, I mean, like, I guess I would say not Guillotina. Like, it seems like that's something pretty simple that you could go to like Wix.com or something to do. And there's no built-in interface. Guillotine is not a CMS. So, I mean, do you have any other thoughts?
It's a bit overscaling using. It's a small schema. It smells like relational data. So we are non-SQL schemaless.
But guess who is a relational schema?
Oh, it seems like we could actually do it in Django, but why bother? Just put it on WordPress.com.
Good point.
The situation reminds me of an application that Michael Kennedy from who's also have talked Python to me, and also has courseware for that uses Pyramid. He wrote a really basic Pyramid app that lists and allows somebody to manage a musical group's albums and songs, and it sounds like it would be. And just watching that and actually working through that tutorial, it's like, yeah, Pyramid's a great fit. You don't have to put a lot of effort into the development. You just have a few endpoints, a couple of users, one to manage it, and another anonymous user just to view the listings, and pretty much done, I think.
Okay.
I just want to add that with Django, especially with a single user who's not afraid of fiddling around with things, the admin interface is really great. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people here have encountered the situation where you've not set up a permission correctly on Plone and a client has gone in and deleted an entire section, and then they want to know where the section has gone. All of Django is like that, really. If you have staff and super user permissions, you can do all sorts of things that will really screw up the site. So often people have trouble deciding how many permissions do I give to users to balance being able to change things and do what they want easily. But with a technical user, it's great for them to just control everything and fix it themselves if they break it.
Cool.
I wanted to just interject. We did have a shout out for WebSauna, which is it is a, would you call it an add-on or a development environment or a content management system on top of Pyramid? Yeah.
It's a framework.
Right. So that would be another option if you wanted to have something on top of Pyramid.
Right. All right, let's move on. Did you want to add? Let's move on to, I'll do one more and then I'll try to get some audience ideas. So an NGO needs a database application for their highly confidential data. Their aim is to bring long-time unemployed people back to the market. Information about their program participants contains delicate data about health, drug consumption, police records, and similar. Some information should be hard restricted for single persons. Others need to be visible for a group of trainers. Security is most important. All access and all changes in data and access rights need to get audit logged. Data need to be deleted automatically after some time. GDPR compliance. Statistical data need to be kept anonymized. Is this another cherry-picked item? Or no?
So, in my mind, a pyramid is a good fit for this use case because during my transition from Plone to Pyramid, I worked at a company that was dealing with health data, and we really didn't want to trust that Plone doesn't have skeletons hidden in its security mechanisms. And that was one of the reasons why Pyramid was chosen for that project, because we could understand everything that's going on, which for Plone, I don't think a lot of people can claim that they fully understand what's going on behind the curtains.
Additionally, with Pyramid, you're able to write your own users, groups, and permissions, and have that down to a very fine grain.
I understand it because I wrote it.
Exactly, because you know exactly what it is. And you can even restrict it down to like an HTTP request method, get, put, post, whatever. So it's not just on the object itself, but what you can actually do upon the object, that you can have these really fine-grained permissions. It's going to be still a lot of work because you'd still have to use a database. Postgres is really great for this, and SQAlchemy would be a great ORM to use with Pyramid. It integrates very well. And, you know, I think, did we cover?
And the entire UI and everything. It's
Right.
a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. You would have to do a lot of, just like any kind of any user interface, you have a lot of work ahead of you. You could choose to use either server-side rendering, which is great out of the box if you're doing a prototype, or you can write your own and have Pyramid return JSON responses and then consume that with your JavaScript front-end framework of the week.
Right, so Django wouldn't support something like this out of the box because the permission system is really, really simple. And a workaround would be to incorporate it into the SQL queries itself, so you can't actually get to the data at all. But given that it's highly sensitive data, you probably want something that does end-to-end, including on-disk encryption of your data, which is not something by default done by any database system, I guess. So that would be something I would be looking out for, and not really caring about a specific framework in this use case.
Yeah, so as Rule says, the killer on this is really the access control. Django doesn't have any sort of per object or per field access control. You would probably spend the majority of your time developing this project trying to get that right and do it in a way where you don't accidentally leak data. A few of the other things, yeah, there's some of these features that in another project might be good, like Django has a limited built-in audit log. It's not at all a good fit, but yeah, there's a few little things.
Yeah, I guess this one fits Guillotine pretty well. Like, besides for the UI, I mean, you have to build the whole UI, but it has the permission system to be able to accomplish that per object permission system. And yeah, it can scale to a lot of events, a lot of objects too, really easily, and you can have a lot of writes to it. So for all the data that you'd be collecting, which would probably be a lot, you could handle it. Anything else?
As it supports Kafka and the logging and auditing system, it's easy to implement in a way that it's 100% assurance that everything is logged and we are not losing any data. So yeah, it's a really good fit.
I think you can do this with Plone as well, but you need a deep understanding of the permission system and everything to lock things down, and workflows and all the built-in roles you need to add for this, and use a hierarchy for storing data to access them right. I think we have collective finger pointing for audit logging, and it's also kind of extensible with events, so this would work. And after all, deleting data is, yeah, that's just a task, I think. So if you lock it down, you can do it with Plone, I would say. Paul?
Nietzsche said that something about being able to grok the whole framework, and I guess like Guillotina is a lot smaller than Plone. It's one package, and it has the whole permission system in that one package, and it's a lot easier to understand what's going on. There's not a lot of code in Guillotina.
Does anybody want to, so I hear Pyramid and Guillotina as good candidates here. Why one versus the other? Any equally good? Anything, tips towards one or the other? I mean, anything particular with GDPR or that's better or worse?
I don't think any
Equally good, so according to...
You have to implement equal amount of it. Yeah.
Take the mic.
So it's about equal amount of implementation work in either Guillotine or Pyramid. So they're like in respect to GDPR. So yeah.
Okay, great. So we've got a couple more, but I thought I'd take a moment to pause and see if is anybody in the audience have a use case they'd particularly like to talk about, or a particular question. I'm gonna pass that around.
Okay, so the Guillotina guys keep saying that they have no UI, but what's this about Guillotina CMS? What about Volto? What the heck?
Yeah, that's a CMS UI. There's like other kinds of UIs you need to build, but it's not like fully supported from what I understand. I don't use Volto.
Well, it's in really early stage, and somebody needs to take care about this connection between Guillotina and Volto, because it's not even my use case. So somebody needs to champion the situation.
I mean, the way we use it is we're building web applications with it, right? So like, I guess we aren't as involved in that use case.
Yeah, at the end, Guillotina, it's mostly you like Plone REST API. You need to build an application. You have a small framework to build applications with the API that you like.
Is that sufficient? Anybody else from the audience want to ask a question or have a use case that you'd like us to talk about? Okay, keep thinking. I'll read one more. A 100-person company wants an intranet to allow its users to communicate with each other. The office administration team will edit content daily. Team managers will edit content every few months at most. Content can be a variety of things, from news items to expense claim forms. The system will store confidential information, so needs to be hosted locally by the IT team, who mostly work on provisioning PCs and phone systems rather than websites.
Yeah, Plone would be a good fit for this. It has most of that functionality, again, out of the box, and it allows end users to create a lot of the stuff that they need. As far as hosting locally by the IT team, Plone tends to keep on working for a very long time if you set it up properly. Updates might be a problem, but if it's within a good firewall, well, you can get away with being one version behind. So I would say it's a good fit.
Yeah, except the hosting, it's probably more difficult than with other systems, but yeah, I think also it's a good fit. And intranet lockdown is even possible with a standard Plone. We did it in past, and it just works.
I think it's a good fit if you have money to build the front end again. Because, of course, it's an intranet, so maybe you will need something really specific, so it's a good opportunity to build something. From the backend point of view, I don't see any problem. We have most of the functionality. And from the deployment point of view, we are completely focused on Docker, Kubernetes. So if the IT of they have Kubernetes, then we have a lot of receipts to deploy from 10 users to a lot of users, and it's really simple. If you don't have Kubernetes, then you need to work a bit more.
So I think I'm actually going to disagree with this being a particularly good fit for Plone, mainly because of the people who don't need to use it very often. As we've mentioned, there's some learning curve occasionally with getting into Plone, and I think Django CMS or Wagtail are a couple of really good basic CMSs that would fit this really well. They'd allow people to use a really stripped down user interface for doing their editing, and people wouldn't get frustrated at going into the system once a month and not remembering exactly what they did last time to, I don't know, get the sharing right, or any of the other myriad features we have in Plone that aren't necessarily that well understood. Also, Django has really great support for integrating custom-built applications, such as perhaps expense claim forms, you mentioned, into a CMS that is going to be really easy to farm out to a local developer quite cheaply and have them build without having to find someone who can build the entire stack.
And the hosting bit is also fairly easy. Just drop down Postgres and a Python runner, you're basically done.
Yeah, there's a lot of documentation.
Yeah, just insane amount of documentation on getting stuff up and running. So that helps. How does it work for you guys?
Gauntlet thrown down.
Right. I think the questions up to this point and also the answers are also to a degree fundamentally flawed, because if a company comes to you and asks, I need to have emails, you don't tell them to install an email server. You tell them, like, go to Rackspace or ProtonMail. And in this case, Quave, which is the Plone internet built on top of Plone, is a good solution. And for example, we had a use case before with a concert venue owner. I think a much better approach there is to use like Pyramid or whatever to build a product for that person, and then find similar concert venues that need a similar product, and then sell that as a subscription instead of doing consulting. That's where I think our main this is where our angles differentiate the most. I see everything as this can be a really good product, and a lot of people see this can be a good consulting project. And with consulting projects, you're always on a limited budget, so it's hard to say yes, use Pyramid for a consulting project when you have to build all this UI. But if you see there's a long-term strategy of where you can sell the same product 100 or 1,000 times, then it's not a problem to start with something more low level, but that gives you more flexibility to build exactly what you want.
All right. I ask again. Is that, or does somebody
Well, I
else?
just thought I'd add that that's a good point, and we could differentiate between doing client-type consulting and then building products. And I think Guillotine is more for building products as well, and so is Pyramid, and then maybe Django's more of the consulting, Plone's more of the consulting route.
Good points. Still looking for an audience use case. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I would have to interject here because, well, the use case specifically said it needed to be hosted locally. That was a requirement, so I'm always a bit afraid of things that as a service, also because I cannot get the budget for more than 3 years because I work in an actual NGO, and in the end, all those subscriptions do add up. But we quite often also have the requirement of in-house hosting for a variety of reasons.
I mean, like, just because it's a product doesn't mean you can't have it in-house. So, like, our product, we have an on-premise install as well. So.
No? Still no takers? All right, I'm going to move on to... We do? Oh, awesome. Awesome. Go get them.
I have maybe one of my fun things I always work with is maps. And it's not like reusing maps like you have with the Google Maps, Bing Maps and so on, but it's like actually generating the map out of the data so that you can modify, that you hold your data about where are the streets actually at the moment working or capable on that, and generate the map out of it. That's the one point. The other thing is storing additional information, blob information, so images, files, description about all the stuff in, and give the user an interface to edit the data, to add additional information, text, a lot of images. So for example, in Munich at the moment we have a lot of demonstrations where the people said, okay, we want to go this route, this street to be shut down, but we want to have the pictures on it, a time schedule and everything like that. If you want to make a product that can showcase that things, show the specific maps, let the people know where it is, show the images of the things on the map, what system would you use for that?
Sounds like a use case involving maps and also files and stuff.
So the main thing would be the map information. So that's the geographical information system, which I would delegate to something like Postgres. In which case, it doesn't really matter that much which framework you use. So either Pyramid or Django Guillotina would probably work as well. No, Plone not. As for the static images and stuff like that, we'll just put it on disk or any other service provider which will handle that for us. So we're not storing in database as well. So that should be just fine. In which case, I would use any framework that you're already using, or the one that has the most optimum documentation for your kind of problems. So that would be us.
Good point.
I'd add to that as well that Django has got it doesn't have a huge number of plug-in points, but one of the ones it does have is handling static and uploaded files. And there are lots of implementations of this for storing the data on S3 or on other cloud blob storage providers that makes it really efficient. You don't have to work out how the blobs get moved between your server and externally and how to serve them. It's all handled transparently.
Yeah, I mean, Pyramid doesn't really care which database you use or what file storage you use, so it would be suitable here because, yes, you can use Postgres, GIS. So.
I'd like to just add too that I'm working on a team that is mapping municipal utilities, that's the electric companies that are in pretty much thousands of cities across the United States, and we're mapping their electrical grids. And you're able to select a single electrical piece of equipment, have photographs, and see how they are interconnected on this network. It's an amazing application, and it's using Pyramid as the back end.
Good use case. Anybody, Guillotina people want to? I think we're pretty
Well,
much
just
know that we don't want to use Plone for this.
as we are the only async.io framework, large files streaming in and out of the framework, async.io wins any battle on streaming. So Guillotina is also a good fit. Besides, they can use PostGIS or whatever.
And one addition.
Oh yeah, but for streaming like the file objects, once you get the file name or path to like Nginx, it will take care of it for you. So we probably not stream. Well, yeah, fair enough, but I'm not gonna open up Django by itself to the internet, so.
So where are you storing these images, or these files?
On disk.
You're gonna store them on disk, so you're not gonna have them like replicated or anything like that?
Or you can put it in S3.
Okay, so you're gonna be streaming out of S3 synchronously in a threaded model? Sorry.
Excuse me, we've had a disagreement.
No, I'm just saying that this is exactly where Guillotina is nice, because you're streaming from an external service like S3, and it's not blocking when you're streaming.
Yes, so in Django you would use an S3 provider for your media, and then instead of streaming from S3, you would just generate the URL, so the client would fetch from S3 or Cloudflare directly. So that's really good if you're happy with the URLs and the data being public, but if you need some sort of access control on them, you either need to delegate that to S3 and sync your access control between Django and S3, or you need to stream it, which, as Nathan says, is not the best use case for Django.
Awesome. Whoop. And another rebuttal.
Look at his smile.
Yeah, to put it bluntly, I think async.io is a great example of premature optimization. because you can debate how harder it is to write async IO code than the regular code, but we're all going to agree that it is harder to a degree, right? Like how harder, debatable, but it is harder. So in 95 or 99% of the cases, you don't need crazy performance, but you're sacrificing, all of your code needs to be async. So all of your code is going to be harder to write, harder to understand, harder to debug, just so that you can handle that 1% of performance problems that you really have, and you can do that. We're on a Python conference, right? Like if we really cared about performance, we wouldn't be here. We would be on a Rust conference. And just use Python, which is meant to be readable, easy to understand. And then when at some point you reach a performance problem, you rewrite just that small part with Golang, Rust, whatever.
So is everybody here happy with the performance of Plone? I mean, like, come on. Yeah, with a lot. Like, how many writers can you have at a time? Like, come on. Not much, right? And yeah, I mean, maybe we don't use Python for performance strictly, but there are other reasons, and maybe you do want to get like far enough. Like Instagram was built with Python and async IO, so like, yeah, yes, it is trade-offs. And okay, whatever. What do you want to say? Hold on.
Just let me add something.
Okay,
If you
two
don't
more
like the
comments, and then we have to move on.
Okay, I'm going to go short. If you don't like the language syntax, don't use TypeScript, because they also have async and await everywhere. Then you need to write in JavaScript also. You need to write on JavaScript async and await on TypeScript or front-end development. So people get used to this kind of keywords on the language. I know that it may be difficult for you, but but and yeah, it was all.
That's pretty low.
Nate says the last word.
So pypi.org, where everybody downloads their Python packages, is written in Pyramid. It has tons of traffic. I will never have as much traffic. I don't need async IO, at least I don't think I do.
All right. Oh, to continue this discussion, please get these guys.
I have to say one more thing. Django is going async.
And Pyramid has IO Pyramid.
Please don't bring us into this.
Okay, a 3-person company that provides residential gardening services needs a website to advertise their services. There are pages for the various services they provide, but these are rarely changed. Every few years, they will update their prices and information about the areas they provide services for. They're very non-technical to the extent that they're slightly afraid of computers. They're often on the road, so would need to change things from their phones.
None of us.
Same, yes. None of us.
Anybody got anything to add to that?
I think we want to fight about async IO.
I'll try to save 10 minutes at the end for that. All right. Do we have any other use cases? Excellent use case from the audience before. Any other use cases that would stimulate dramatic battles? I can't really see, so, okay, there is one. Okay, sure, thanks.
Sorry, who is?
Yep. What about WebSockets?
That's not a use case. My use case is that I need to use WebSockets. What's a use case that uses WebSockets? Can somebody come up with a use case that uses?
In a real-time application.
Thank you. Thank you for translating.
What about WebSockets? Where's ASCO? So WebSockets can be used to pass information kind of directly between sites. So what's the use case about it? Notification or even status, keeping a status between different sites and so on. Well, we can,
thank you.
if we can do it with Plone after ESCO's great work with C-Server 5.0 or something like that. Yeah, if we wanted, I think any system here is able to do it, right?
Well, Guillotina supports WebSockets with more than 2 writers at the same time, and
Yeah, I mean, async IO is perfect for WebSockets.
Yeah, so Django is adopting async IO, and we have something called the Channels API, which is intended for this kind of use case, but my impression is that most people writing applications in Django do not have large requirements for WebSockets at the current point in time. It's definitely something that people are interested in, but Django is never going to be a WebSocket server to coordinate real-time things. It might be used to enhance part of another application, but it's never going to be the focus.
So WebSockets fall in that 1% where you actually need performance. We had WebSockets implemented with Pyramid, ran it for about a year, and then when we got enough traffic, we rewrote it to Golang. And it's way faster than async IO could ever be.
Okay, moving on. Anybody have another? Anybody out there? I'll let you think a minute more, and I'll ask. Oh,
I just want to deny the fact that there's a bet to see who can get Ramon to murder them at the party.
Okay. A large company wants to monitor how well their customer service staff are doing. Every time someone calls in, an email is sent to them with a short survey. The survey questions never change and are very simple. The staff never look at individual responses. They generate exports that are analyzed by the head office.
You just have to write your own app in Pyramid. There's nothing out of the box for that, and it's pretty much whenever you're talking about an app, you're going to have to write your own.
But would it be easy?
I think so. This would be relatively simple. It's just, use Pyramid as creating your API and designing it well up front, knowing what your needs are. And Pyramid has add-ons that could send out mails to the customers and then collect those survey responses. You could store all that stuff in a Postgres database and using SQLalchemy again as the ORM to read and write to that. And exporting stuff out of Pyramid is pretty much simple to do, just like any kind of export.
Yeah, so this, you could absolutely do it in Django. There are huge Django sites that accept loads and loads of requests per second, but frankly, this isn't something I would do in Django. The advantage of Django is fulfilling the 80% use cases that lots of people have. This, to me, feels like a custom web application that hasn't got any editing forms, hasn't got any user admin. You could do it in any framework. There's no reason to pick Django over one that has better primitives and less boilerplate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of the same answer we've had a few times. We're just a REST API, so like it kind of depends on your front-end skills, but you can build an app. It's the same.
Seeing as there's absolutely no user interface, my tool of choice would be set, awk, and bash. And not Plone.
Definitely not Plone.
No, it sends an email. Pipe it. Unix was made for this. Oh, with a link, yeah, whatever. Bit of Perl thrown in.
So in fact, if you're really into using Plone for it, you could use a combination of EasyForm and Easy Newsletter. Too easy. That's not that easy. So I bet it's possible.
Two easy add-ons, neither of which are easy. Okay. Anybody got anything else? All right, great. So we have like 4 minutes left, and I've run out of my questions. So you guys have to ask your questions, or we'll end early, whichever you like to do. So anybody got one more question or one more use case you'd like us to argue about? Going once, going twice. Yeah, yeah, sure. Since there are no more audience, do you guys want to just take one more pass at bashing each other? Oh, we got one more. Okay.
Since you shortly mentioned Django-based CMSs, can you elaborate on the state in which they're in, like maintenance, roadmap, and if you want to compare them to Plone, at which percentage level compared to Plone are they? I already heard that they're easier to strip down and offer less features, which is sometimes more, but...
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. So there are two main ones. There's the imaginatively named Django CMS. That is it's a bit more similar to Plone in a lot of ways, but it's got the idea of having different content types and navigation bars, and it's edited through the same interface that you view the CMS in. The other one is Wagtail, which is very shiny and users love it. It's not so easy to use on mobile compared to Django CMS. They are both commercial open source, so they're open source software managed by a company rather than a foundation. They both have lots of users, but the roadmap is kind of driven by the company and what they think their niche is. I'm not aware of there being much in terms of a public list of what's going to be happening soon. I would generally pick Django CMS if you wanted Plone Lite, and Wagtail if you wanted WordPress Plus.
Cool. All right. Anybody want to add to that? Do a little wrap up, quick wrap up. Unless somebody has a 1 minute's worth of question. We literally have 1 minute left.
I've used all of these a lot, and I like them all. I really like Guillotina, and async IO is a lot of fun. Maybe there's some learning curve, but it actually unlocks being able to solve problems in different ways. It's really nice.
And the API is the same as Plone. So if you like the API from Plone, then you will like.
I also used Django and Pyramid, and I use Plone, I think, for the different use cases. There are great systems. In the future, I may use Guillotina. We'll at least have a deeper look at it. And so I think we have a great ecosystems of here in the Python environment to build web applications and all around. And we should spread the word more.
Lots of good tools. Anybody down that end want to have a last word?
Yeah, I'll just echo the fact that any of us in here could build any of these systems in Plone if we really wanted to. The same goes for all of these frameworks. None of them are so restricted that you couldn't build the app. The question is, which is the better fit? And hopefully we've managed to convince you that for some small consulting web products, Django is a really good way to get something nice and user-friendly and fast and cheap and maintainable.
All right.
And other things.
30 seconds left.
Yeah, so the main reason I got into Pyramid was because, I was looking at their t-shirts, and I just said, oh, that's a cool death metal band. I'm going to join them. And so that's how we ended up here. So
it's all on the t-shirts.
Anyway, if you want the best t-shirts, you have to use Pyramid.
Depends on your taste. Okay, so.
I agree.
All right, thank you all for coming, and thank you very much for great discussion.
Thank you very much.